Hey, it's Jeff, back with more calculation training on ChessTempo, and last time we took a bit of a rating hit. Also, I think the RD was about 200 last time, now it's about 139, so pretty soon we will get back into ranked. But yeah, let's just try to stop the bleeding and see where we're at. Oh wait, I need to get my timer. And let's go. So in game one, generally hate those. Well, usually because it means a lot more calculation. If it was a middle game, sometimes it's a clear theme that I kind of recognize, but with the end games, anything can happen. Also, I'm very confused whose move it is. So it's white to move, but why is it's really white to move? Wait, how do I? This is very weird. Let me try to refresh. Resume. Okay. Oh, I think maybe I pressed the button to flip the board when I was trying to bring up the timer. Which is another way to train, actually. You can do the problems from the other perspective. But yeah, so this makes more sense. So it's white to move. Okay, we wasted. Actually, we're gonna restart this since. Okay. So technical difficulties out the way, and is an endgame. So they moved to h2. So they won a queen, which is probably losing for us. So it maybe means that either we can checkmate them quickly before they can play h1 queening, or knight takes h2 would be the right move, or knight g3 can also stop the pawn. Other ideas I see in the position, though, probably I'm looking at rook h7, but there's a knight on g5. I'm looking at pawn to g7 immediately. It's defended by the knight. This is a really good candidate. And also, like, if the king to like g8, one of the knight checks could lead to mate in some case. So like the moves that I mentioned before, like knight takes h2 or knight g3, I consider them, but I think they are. I would look at them as a last resort. I would look for the more forcing things first. But I mentioned them first because I was looking at ways to stop the pawn. Because if they have a super serious threat that has to be dealt with, then you have to take that in consideration. But so yeah, so just kind of insight into how unorganized my thought process is sometimes with these. But I'm really looking at rook h7 for some reason. I don't think it would lead to mate though. Well, it might. Because I'm trying to see if rook h7, knight takes h7, g7, it takes off the h7 square for black's king, so he would have to go to g8. And at that point, knight h6, I feel like it looks like checkmate to me. And it might be, like, if this is one of the hard ones, it might be that because a lot of people, they're hesitant to give up the exchange, but if it leads to mate, then the trick is to calculate far enough so that you're convinced that it's the right move. So a lot of people might be trying to take the pawn, or they might be trying to play g7 first, thinking knight f6 or knight h6 after it's checkmate. Also, a good thing about this compared to chess.com would be if that line rook h7 does lead to mate, and it's not the quickest mate, it will give us an option to find a quicker one without giving us a wrong answer and saying you lost points. So let's just make sure that this is a forced checkmate, although I'm pretty sure it is. So so after rook h7 they could go king g8, but I wonder if knight h6, king f8, rook f7 there wouldn't work because of knight takes f7. But okay, let's make sure that the knight takes h7 first move order works, and then we'll look at if they don't take the rook on h7. So if you didn't follow along with that last sentence, don't worry about it. We're gonna go through it right now. So rook h7. So I'll get the arrows too. Well, not arrows, but the mouse. Rook h7. Knight takes h7. G7. Only move is king g8. Knight h6. Knight gh6. And that should be checkmate because this is covered by the pawn, this is covered by the knight, this is covered by the pawn. The pawn is protected by this knight, and this square is protected by the knight on h6, and this knight is no longer on this square, it's on h7. So that does lead to checkmate. Now the question is, does rook h7, king g8 give us a forced win? It feels like it should. But let's, and one thing, some people, they might see the rook h7 and see at least to mate in this line and then just play it immediately. But since there is another move that black can make, like you can't just expect that black will be materialistic and try to win the exchange. Like if there's a better move, then you have to look at that as well. Because if they get out and they're not losing material or getting mated, then you have to do something else anyway. So always assume that the opponent will play the best move. So rook h7, king g8. Knight, does it matter? I'm going knight h6. I'm gonna think knight g h6. I'm gonna look at that first. We could also look at knight f6, but I think looking at knight g h6 first helps because, like in the other line, if we go g7, the knight would be covering f7 still. So if g7 becomes a check move, it would lose, if the rook is on the 7th rank, then moving, if the rook was on h7, moving g7 does block f7, so the king would be able to escape. That might be a difference between f6 and h6 in some lines. But anyway, rook h7, king g8, knight gh6. And at this point, I'm keeping that position in my head, so the rook is on h7, knight is on g6, king is on g8. And I know the king is in check, and so I'm trying to mentally see what are all the moves that black can go and find the candidate moves at that point. And the difficult thing for me sometimes is, and especially with trying to commentate now, is actually visualizing it and having the concentration to see clearly what's going on. And that's kind of why I keep starting over. But and I'm gonna start over again just because for some of you guys that are also trying to follow along, it kind of helps. Like if I go off on too many tangents, I'll just restart the line for you guys. But rook h7, king g8, knight gh6, check. So what can black do? Black cannot go to h8, cannot take the rook, cannot go to g7. Has to go to f8. That's the only legal move. And okay. And at that point, we can go g7, but wait. So for some reason I was thinking the black king would be able to escape to e7 in some lines. But if this knight is still on f5, then that might not be the case. And so g7 with a knight on h6 the knight on the h6 still covers f7. Okay, so let's start over because I've lost the position again. Rook h7, king g8, knight g h6, king f8. Did I say f8 when I meant g8? Anyway, king f8. And we have a rook here and a knight here. So g7, is it checkmate? No, wait, maybe. So with a pawn on g7, rook on h7, knight on h6, king on f8. With the pawn here, the king cannot go to e7 because the knight on f5. It cannot go to f7 because the knight on h6. It cannot take the pawn on g7 because the knight on f5. And it cannot go back to g8 because of the knight on h6. So it does lead to mate. I kind of had that inkling earlier, but I think going through it like a few more times and making sure it was kind of worth it, and I was able to finally get the explanation in words out. So, and this is good timing. So it's about 10 minutes, so we can go ahead and start playing the moves. And so here we were going to go here and here. And we got it. So let's see, press escape. We gained 29 points, so we're 1921.2. Let's see. And RD is 130.81, okay. And I'll just show the other line. So here, I was looking at this, and this doesn't work because the knight on g5, so you go here, and this is checkmate. So let's look at the, oh, I've done this a couple times. So in 2008, I played g7 on move 1 in 13 seconds. So yeah, I guess that was actually really at the beginning of my tournament career. Like, I think my first tournament was in 2008, like December 2008 actually. USCF tournament. I played a couple scholastic events before then, but this was definitely really early in my chess career, and I was playing way too fast back then. So you see 13 seconds. But 2 years later, I got this problem right in 46 seconds. So here we took 10 minutes, well, 11:25, but we took that long because I was really trying to work on my calculation and making sure I get it right and not necessarily going for speed. Oh, and this problem was rated 1740, so yeah, it was much less challenging than the one, the last one I did, which was rated 2000. But the last one was doable too. But let's see. But yeah, it was just a forced checkmate. And 27 mistakes. So G7 is the most common mistake by far. And the thing is, I would say if you played G7, like if you paused the video and guessed and you thought G7, I guess the advice I would have would be you really want to, like, it's a good forcing move. It's a move that typically could work in a lot of positions, but for these especially, you have to be sure. So you have to see that, okay, the king can go to G8 and H7. If G8, what are you doing? Maybe you're thinking here and trying to win this, but always keep in mind that they're threatening to go H1 and get a queen, so you really have to do something that's gonna checkmate them at this point. And is this checkmate? In this position right here. Yeah, I think it is. But they can go here and then there's like, you're not exactly checkmating. Let me just go to the engine. Make sure there's nothing, so after G7. Okay, yeah, so that doesn't work. So maybe that's what they saw when they played G7, is that they only saw this and they knew it was checkmate. But you go King H7, and all of a sudden there is no checkmate. And you actually do have to do one of these moves that prevent them from queening. So you can do something like that. Well, not like that. They should actually go rook e6. So this gets more complicated. But the point is, this leads to a forced checkmate right away. This only leads to a checkmate if they play this one particular move. So yeah. And we'll see you guys in the next one. I don't think there's anything else that stands out. Next time we could look at wrong second or third moves if there's like a really high number, but it really seems like people get this wrong because they go for G7 when the I guess rook sacrifice was the way to go. Alright, thanks for watching.